Let me do that again. Good evening and welcome to INQ&A. The Inquirer question and answer program comes to you every Tuesday. We sit down with a leading newsmaker every week to discuss the issues of the day. And tonight, fresh from the House of Representatives, we have a special guest indeed. INQ&A is heard on Radyo Inquirer 990. It is seen live on Inquirer.net's Facebook Live account. It is also carried on the different Inquirer social media platforms, including Viber, Kakao, FireChat, Line, and of course, Twitter. It is also viewable on Beam TV, Inquirer 990 Digital Television, and it is, of course, covered by the Philippine Daily Inquirer and Inquirer.net. I'm John Neri, I'm Editor-in-Chief of Inquirer.net, and with me is my co-host, the Chief of Reporters of Inquirer.net, Christine Sabilio.
Thank you, John, and good evening, and happy Valentine's to everyone watching us tonight. Our guest for tonight is, as John said, is from the House of Representatives. We have three things we'd like to share about him. The first one is he studied journalism in UP. The second, he has a dog, a Shih Tzu named Vader. And the third is that he was a former governor of Ifugao Province. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Teddy Baguilat. Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Of course, the usual happy Valentine's greeting to everyone.
Good evening, Kong Ted. Thank you very much for making time for this show. As we mentioned, you came all the way from Batasan. What was happening when you left?
No, the interpellations were going on. I think si Rob Rocamora was on deck. Before him was Congressman Harry Roque. Around maybe 2 to 3 interpellators every day. Yun yung mga nakasalang. I'm number 6, so that's probably tomorrow or next week.
How long is the list right now?
Edsel, the leader of the pack, is aiming for a list of 50 representatives. We have right now in the list around 25. No? Aside from us in the genuine minority, andyan ang Makabayan, as well as anti-death penalty advocates from the different parties. Kasi gusto namin na ipalabas na hindi lang to opposition advocacy, but it crosses all party lines. So, we hope na they won't impose that 1 hour. The speaker was threatening that we'll be given only an hour to interpellate.
An hour each.
Yeah, but guys like Dito Tienza, Harry Roque, and Ed Selagman, kulang yung isang oras. No? So, ang balak namin sana is 1 session day, one magi-interpellate.
Okay, so if you have 50 on your list, 50
session days.
Session days.
yeah, because this is the most important, the most significant bill in the 17th Congress, at least initially. And a lot of the representatives are still undecided. There's a lot of pressure coming from the leadership. So, gusto sana namin is conscience vote yung iiral, pero ang lakas ng pressure galing sa liderato. That's why mahalaga siguro na yung masinsinan yung talakayan. We have a very extensive discussion of all the issues pertaining to the death penalty. Para at the end of the day, the representatives will decide whether they will follow the party line or their own personal convictions based on what they have discerned from the debates.
Kong Ted, I want to ask you about the number of undecided, but before that, can you give us an idea of the numbers? I mean, what's the minimum number needed for the bill to pass?
50% plus 1 of those in the session
Present, yes.
during the vote. So right now, each camp are claiming they have the numbers. So, pero ang tingin namin, I think those who say that they're undecided are actually leaning against the death penalty.
Ganun.
Yeah, ayaw lang siguro nila magpahayag publicly na ito yung position nila. Kasi every time the majority calls for a caucus, tatanungin sila, ano ba ang decision ninyo sa death penalty, karamihan sa kanila ay nilang sabihin muna. So they say undecided pa sila, no? They would like to ask their constituents, they'd like to listen to the debates. But most of them, when we talk to them personally, ang sagot nila is, personally, ito yung position ko, no? But at the end of the day, the most important thing is during the votation, whether they stick to their personal conviction or, as I've said, whether they will follow party dictates. And ang pagkaalam ko is, at least for us in the Liberal Party, ang decision is not to have a party position. No, we are opting for a conscience vote. Yun yung pinahayag namin doon sa aming pagpupulong. I think the other parties are also asking for a conscience vote. But the leadership is insisting that it should be a party decision. And to me, that's dangerous for the leadership. Kung pipilit nila na kailangan magkaroon ng isang party line, no? Because let's face it, 99% of the members are with the administration. So are they saying,
why do you say it's dangerous for the leadership?
Kasi even when in the last Congress, no, I was with the administration, of course, we had a super coalition, but on issues that were very contentious. Let's say yung RH.
Yes.
That was the pet deal of the President Aquino, pero hindi niya pinilit. There was pressure, of course, but at the end of the day, sinasabi niya na nasa sa inyo na yan. It was a conscience vote, no? Ngayon, kung ipipilit, what would you do with distinguished leaders in the House, such as the former President, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, who already said that she is sticking to her position and vote against the death penalty. Or in the Makabayan bloc, karamihan sa kanila, they hold key positions. Chairmanship of several committees ang hawak ng Makabayan. Even our LP Deputy Speaker, Mira Kimbo, is against the death penalty. So, yun yung pag ipipilit mo, baka it might be the cause of the unraveling of the coalition.
Titingnan ko lang yung ito yung, so what we're dealing with here is the Consolidated Bill 4727, no?
Yeah.
Titingnan ko lang yung listahan ng principal authors. So you have the Speaker of the House, you also have the official minority leader, Congressman
the co-opted minority
Suarez. But you also have people like Congressman Biazon, Congressman Barbers, the brother of Senator Pacquiao. Parang may mga rin sila, no? Parang the big guns are also on their on their side.
Because that was the first bill filed. Substitute bill lang yan, no? But the House Bill number 1 is
yung kay Alvarez mismo.
Alvarez, and that's where you have Danny Suarez, the minority floor
already,
leader, breaking delicadeza by signing on to the first administration bill, no? And then I think they asked most of the deputy speakers, those who have key positions, to sign in as co-authors. But yun nga, at the end of the day, it's about getting the numbers, the majority. So, and ako, based on my personal conversations, I am informal talks with my colleagues sa aming row, sa section namin, mas marami yung nagsasabi na tutol sila sa death penalty, no? Meron pa nagsabi sa akin na hingin na nila lahat sa akin, wag lang ito kasi nasa puso to, ganyan, no? So many are staking their positions on their personal convictions. It could be religious, it could be ideological, pero very personal itong issue sa karamihan. Kaya kung i-force mo yung party vote, mahirap yon para sa kanila. Malulunok ba nila yon? Matatanggap ba nila, no? And we're not just talking of the death penalty. Pagkatapos yan, susunod na yung lowering of the age of criminal responsibility, CHACHA, BBL. So these are very difficult bills. So sa umpisa pa lamang, kung medyo pahihirapan mo na yung mga kasamahan na ipipilit mo yung decision, yung kanilang decision based on party lines, baka mahirapan ka na itulak yung mga sumusunod na bills.
Congressman, what are the repercussions for members of the majority not to go against the death penalty? Like, previously kasi the Congress had a PDAF, so that's a way for, I guess, for the majority to keep the congressman, to follow the party line. But now, well, I guess one of that is the leadership positions. You
Yes.
might lose a leadership position. What are the other things that may threaten a majority congressman if he does not follow the party?
Well, for many, the key positions are important. Kasi to be a chairperson of a committee, you're considered among the leaders of the House. You have additional staff, you have additional privileges. So that's important. Now, for each of us, even if you say wala na yung PDAF, you still have some entitlements in terms of allocations to your district. Yung mga automatic allocations naman, whether it's scholarship or medical assistance, that this goes to your district. Ngayon, lagi naman naming sinasabi na walang karapatan rin yung executive na i-hold yung perang ito because pera ng taong bayan ito. It goes rightfully to your constituents. No? But yun nga, in terms of the release of the budget, baka ma-delay, baka bawasan, no? That shouldn't be because it's in the General Appropriations Act. So, maraming mga maaaring gawin ng leadership and of course the executive na medyo agam-agam, no? Pangamba, nag-iisip ka ng mga agam-agam dahil baka mag-suffer yung iyong distrito. So, it's a risk actually.
Do you think Speaker Alvarez was completely sincere when he issued the threat? Tatanggalan ng positions, ng leadership positions yung mga...
It's a threat, but
Do you think
it
that
could
he
be
will
an
push...
empty threat. Tulad nga ng sabi ko, you have already... I know of deputy speakers who are against the death penalty as a GMA. And this comes after that, again, rumor of a coup d'etat. So I don't know if it's part of the dynamics kasi palagi namang may mga rumors na tanggalin daw si Speaker Alvarez, si GMA daw ipapalit. So I don't know if it's part of the interplay na okay, will threaten you if you don't toe the administration line, no? But yun nga, sinasabi ko doon, nakakausap ko yung mga makabayan. So ano na ang sinasabi sa inyo? Sabi naman nila, wala naman. Hinihintay na lang namin kung anong abiso sa amin. But they're sticking to their ideological position that they are against the death penalty because it's anti-poor, it's the justice system is flawed, gano'n. No? I think siguro at the end of the day, depende kung mafe-feel ng leadership na karamihan tutol sila sa death penalty or undecided pa yung mga marami, baka umatras sila. Because remember, they were hoping to pass this last year. Last December, no? Tinatulak na ito. And then they decided to give us chance daw, have a very Merry Christmas, so na lang this Christmas, next year na lang daw, no? So, and then the speaker said that there will be a full debate. That's what he said. So, pag sinabi mo na yung mga administration, the coalition members, they should vote for the death penalty, ano nang silbi nung sinasabi mong full debate? So, it's a contradictory statement, no? Doon sa kanya mga earlier pahayag na magkakaroon tayo ng free debate on this very important issue. So I'd like to think na siguro in the coming weeks magkakaroon ulit ng administration caucus and then again they will ask each member what they feel, and if they're not confident that they can get the numbers, baka mag-soften yung position ni speaker.
Sir, before we ask you about your own reasons why you're against the reimposition, can you put on the hat of, let's say, Speaker Alvarez? What is his main rationale? What I mean,
why is he
if you were
pushing
to
so
give him the
hard
benefit
for
of the
this?
of the doubt? Bakit daw kailangan?
Well, this is House Bill number 1. This is the Alpha Bill.
The Alpha Bill. Maganda.
Parang and considering that the administration, no, ang kanilang strongest linya is the kampanya laban sa droga. and this actually is very much related to that campaign.
That's right.
Because I think there's a plan to water down the substitute bill and just limit the crimes to those related to
To
drug
drugs.
offenses.
Mhm.
And ganun rin naman doon sa lowering of the age of criminal responsibility. Ang laging nababanggit is yung mga bata daw ginagamit sa drug trade. No? So it's really about drugs.
Mhm.
So if they fail here, they're not so confident about pushing the other items in their legislative agenda. No? Plus the fact that he was the author of this bill.
That's
so,
right, yeah.
So syempre, I understand na malaking kahihiyan kung yung mismo Speaker of the House hindi niya maitulak ito. It was the same situation with Speaker Sonny Belmonte with the Chacha, the economic Chacha. Even if a lot of the colleagues were not really for changing the Constitution on the economic provisions. No? But si Speaker Belmonte yung tutulak ito. So we have to give that bill a chance. No? So I think ganun rin kay Speaker Alvarez. Maybe he feels that he will lose his moral ascendancy to being the leader
In a
of the
manner of
House.
speaking.
Yeah. If he fails in his first priority bill. No?
So this is not a surprise. The fact that this is like a dividing line. This is not a surprise, right? You could see it. I mean, when the president ran for office, he was already talking about restoring the death penalty. When he was elected, they were already talking about the measures to enact. Is there anything about the campaign to push this through that surprised you?
Yung impunity no? Yung talagang sa simula pa lamang, trinete na niya yung mga tututol. I mean, that's abnormal in a legislative chamber where people would like to debate, would like to be given the free will to decide. I know there are, of course, party positions, but in the Philippines, wala naman party platforms or ideologies.
Yes.
No? So this is just whether you are for us or against us. No?
Sir, you've been in Congress since 2010, right?
Yeah.
This is the first time you've seen anything like this?
Yeah. Because yun nga, tulad ng sabi ko, nung kami kina Pinoy noon, RH, talagang matindi rin yung pakiusap ng Pangulo. No? And, but never to the point that you threaten the members na mawawala yung inyong position or mababawasan yung inyong mga entitlements. No? And yun nga, we gave the parties the free hand to decide whether you follow the president's line or conscience vote. And karamihan, syempre, conscience vote. Syempre, andun si Pangulo na mga kaibigan niya, kinakausap niya. That's the pressure that you get from him. No? Pag kinausap ka naman sa phone, medyo ka rin. But with this parang threat, hindi malakas na pakiusap, parang babantaan kita, gano'n. So, we'll see, no? Because tulad niya, ako, wala kaming problema because we're free to state our positions, but we don't know with our colleagues who are leaders of the administration coalition, but they are very much against the death penalty. No? Rav Racamora is a fresh, first termer. He's with the PDP Laban. Siya yung mga nauna nag-interpellate. No? So, meron bang parusa na PDP Laban ka, tapos ikaw pa yung nauna nag-interpellate. No? Ang dynamics kasi sa Congress is, of course, the strong parties right now is PDP. And then you have the NPC. Ang NPC may sarili silang dynamics, hindi basta-basta sumusunod yan. Kakaroon sila ng diskusyon. Kung ang diskusyon nila is susunod kami sa administration position, then okay, lahat tayo susunod. But not because inutos ng speaker. No? Ganun rin ang alam ko, Nationalista Party, dahil dumami na rin sila. So they probably would like to insist that we have our own independent discerning process. No? Hindi yung basta sinabi lang ng isang tao, sunod na tayo lahat. No? I don't know with PDP Laban because that's the president's party. No? But yun nga, we haven't even started the debates. We haven't gone to the meat of the discussions. Parang pinipilit na dapat ang boto natin ay for the death penalty.
So it's like impunity in the streets and impunity in the chamber.
In fact, that's the
yeah.
first time I heard
Yeah,
that word applied to.
Actually, when Congressman said impunity, I was thinking, was he talking about the drug war on the streets or in Congress?
Like, yeah, with Senator De Lima, the first reaction of our colleagues, baka kayo yung susunod na may Vex video, mga ganun. So parang takot sila na pag ikaw
Really?
ay
Wow.
pag ikaw ay matapang, and then gagantihan ka. May mga ganon. Of course, iniisip naman namin hindi naman siguro ganito, no? Otherwise, we're really in a dictatorship, di ba? De facto martial law. Pero ganon yung iniisip ng mga kasamahan namin na baka kayo na yung susunod. It's to me it's their concern, no, na kasi nangyari kay Senator De Lima. Baka kayo na nagsalita o tumututol sa gusto ng ating administration, baka kayo yung susunod. No? But so far, wala pa naman. I think the leadership has been respecting our views. No? But now, when we talk about death penalty, hindi lang kasi kami to lahat whether you're in the minority or in the fake minority or in the super coalition, yan, may mga tutol at saka meron yung mga sumasang-ayon.
Have you heard instances that the president himself has called members of the House?
Wala pa naman.
Or is it too early?
Probably. And maybe marami rin naman kasing mga tinutulak ang Pangulo which would require the cooperation of all. I mean, I for one, I'm for the peace talks. No? So that's one initiative that talagang
that's right.
I'm really supporting. I'm a champion of FOI. You know, and I could say that the situation now, it was different before, no? Where medyo hindi gaano katindi yung support ng Malacanang, no? FOI. But now, talagang this is a priority. So, pagdating naman sa pagiging minority namin, hindi naman yung basta kontrabida ka na lang. No? You'd like to cooperate on initiatives of this administration which you feel is good for the people. Nagkataon kasi ang unang sinasalang ngayon is the death penalty. So, from the very beginning naman, yun ang aming position that we will oppose the death penalty. So, I think it should be just considered as part of democracy in Congress. But if you have these threats, then, yun nga, sabi ko nga parang may impunity in Congress.
Congressman, you talked about the conscience vote, the personal opinion of the congressmen, but congressmen are also representatives. What are the congressmen doing to consult the people, and what is exactly, like for example in your district, what is the sentiment of the people about the death penalty?
On social media, many are for death penalty sa akin. But that's not the accurate gauge.
Yes.
But our bishop is really strongly against the death penalty. No? Every time I hear mass on Sundays when I'm in the district, they always talk about the death penalty. Most of the Catholic leaders, the lay leaders, the BECs that I engage with, pag nagkakaroon kami ng dialogue, against sila sa death penalty. So, I cannot yet say na ito yung percentage of those against and for. Yung mga kongresista na they have perhaps more resources to do surveys. Because may mga ganon. No? There are some of our colleagues who say na wala pa silang decision because they'd like to consult their constituents and have a survey of some sort. No? Like for instance, my friend Toby Chanko does a lot of surveys. So sabi niya, I'm still undecided here. I still have to go back to my constituency and conduct a survey. Ganun rin yung mga ibang mga nakakausap namin. But definitely the church is starting to apply pressure by talking to their representatives. So yun daw ang isang dahilan na chismis lang no, na yung NPC na yung leaders sila were pushing for a yes vote sa death penalty, but the members asked that it be conscience vote kasi hati sila dahil daw ang lakas ng pressure ng mga obispo.
Yesterday we had Archbishop Sok Villegas, the CBCP president, as a guest in the Inquirer, and one of the things that he said was that the bishops would like a conscience vote. as far as the death penalty is concerned. Of course, he says they're not doing any lobbying, but they've been speaking out. I don't know if really that will have an impact on the decision making of the congressmen.
I think it will. That's what happened during the RH vote. Yun, talagang andun sila sa gallery. And then yung president's men and women dun sa lounge, andun naman yung obispo sa gallery. So it was very dramatic. And RH won by 10 votes during the very important second reading vote. So hindi ko alam ngayon if they will also visit us in the gallery. We hope so. But definitely it depends, I guess, on the bishops themselves. Siyempre si Bishop Sok, ang lakas ng kampanya nila in Pangasinan. Sabi ng mga kasama ko, yung mga kausap namin sa CBCP, not all kasi the bishops are really
vocal about
and very active. Unlike during the RH na talagang this was a big issue for them. Which to me, ito nga dapat yung napakahalagang issue kasi buhay talagang pinag-uusapan natin. Very clear. The right to life. Yung sa RH, pwede pang debatehan ng where does life begin But ito talaga,
yun yung, di ba pinag-uusapan, may difference between pro-life tsaka pro-birth lang.
Yeah. Kaya nga kami, we don't use the pro-life na. We use the right to life. So we feel that in terms of the doctrine, the Catholic doctrine, this is their issue. This is the thou shall not kill commandment, na kinakailangan mas matindi sana yung involvement ng church. Although ayaw naman kasi natin na sabihin na, di ba, lagi natin sinasabi there should be a separation of the church and the state. But most of our representatives, tulad nga ng sabi ko, their initial positions are based on their personal religious convictions. So we hope that the church will be, well, maybe not to pressure the Kongs to vote against the death penalty, but to conduct discussions among the constituencies. So kung ang decision is to be against the death penalty, then that's part of the factors that the congressman might think before making his decision during the voting. So yun, inaasahan namin na aside from the human rights groups, the usual suspects, the progressive groups, the left, we also have the church who will be vocal against the death penalty.
Kong, Tain, we have a few more questions also from social media, but let's take a break first.
Yes, we'll be back after a minute. You're still with INQ&A with Congressman Teddy Baguilat.
Novelas, Taiwanese, Japanese at iba pa tulad ng Jewel in the Palace, The Heirs, Descendants of the Sun, Meteor Garden, F4, Boys Over Flowers at iba pa. Sa mga teenagers, libre din ang K-pop at mga variety shows. Panoorin ng libre, high definition sa Wi-Fi o mobile data o i-download ng libre anytime, anywhere, always. Hanapin ang View app sa Google Play Store at sa App Store kung iPad o iPhone at install sa inyong device. Handog ito sa inyo ng Inquire Mega Mobile at ng PCCW View.
Good evening. You're back to INQ&A. We are having a very interesting conversation with Ifugao Representative Teddy Baguilat. Sir, I asked you earlier, can you tell us what are the main arguments against the death penalty?
Well, first let's go to the premise on because the Constitution abolished the death penalty, but gave the Congress the leeway to reinstate on compelling reasons. So yun yung pinaka-premise. What's the compelling reason? Yun nga ang gusto kong tanungin sa interpellation. Ano ba ang yung kahulugan ng compelling reason? Right now, the proponents are saying it's a crime deterrent. Kasi yun na lang sinasabi nila. They will talk about yung kahindik-hindik na mga krimen, rape, murder, drugs, and they feel that with the death penalty, mababawasan ito. So, to us, there's no empirical data that says that death penalty leads to less crime. No? And we have our arguments there. No? We can show that in the years that we have no death penalty, the crime rate actually has been going down. And even the global trends, no? You have countries that have no death penalty, their crime rate is very low. No? So for us, crime deterrence, the sure proof kung para talagang ma-prevent mo ang crime is the certainty of being caught. Being arrested, being prosecuted, being sentenced, and being jailed, at hindi ka makakatakas. That's where you have fear, no, of criminals. No? Pangalawa, it's really also based on my personal conviction. I've been fighting for human rights, rights issues, whether it's the indigenous peoples or farmers' right to own land, kasi agrarian reform advocate rin tayo, or the rights of LGBTs, no? Ito, kahit sabihin natin na ang laging tinutukoy nila is yung mga kriminal, no? But to us, while we're not saying that crime is justified because of poverty, but what we're saying is all people, all humans have human rights, even criminals, no? And the right to life is very important, no? That's in the Constitution, and that's in my basic belief system, no? Na the state cannot have that mandate to decide who dies and who lives, no? Especially if we're talking about emotions, no? Lagi ko ang gustong sabihin dun sa mga nagtutulak ng death penalty. What if it was reversed? What if yung kamag-anak mo ang nasa death row? For instance, we will cite the plight of our overseas Filipino workers. About 90 plus yata are on death row, no? And the state always, whenever someone is on death row, lagi nilang hinihingi na, no, pakawalan, no, clemency, ganyan, no. In fact, there are those who would say na wala naman silang sala, ganyan. They were just defending themselves, so pinatay nila yung employer nila, no. So, una, mawawala yung moral credibility to ask for that if you are bringing back the death penalty. And if you're saying na ang criminal, no, tama lang yung parusa niya na kamatayan, so ganun rin ba yung mga overseas Filipino workers on death row? Because in that country, they are also considered as criminals, and this is their law. No? And yet, doon tayo nagsasabi na, huwag yung patayin, kawawa sila. So that's also one of the reasons, no, why I'm against death penalty. No? The economic cost. This is something that hasn't been discussed, no? But we have kasi international treaties, no? We're a signatory of the International Convention for Civil and Political Rights, no? And dun sa second protocol, no, ang ating obligasyon is to abolish the death penalty, no? Kasama 'yon eh. And we've done that. So now we're going to violate that treaty.
And if there will be economic
there will be
consequences?
economic repercussions. Like for instance, yung EU, meron silang tinatawag na GSP, yung General Systems of Preference, no, na if you are able to meet, I think, 40 indicators on human rights, no, of which one of them is
The
abolition of the death penalty, then you get certain privileges on your exports to EU, no? In terms of no tariff or less tariff. So hindi naman yung sanctions, no, but you lose those incentives. So opportunity cost, no, yung mawawala sa iyo, yun siguro ang kinakailangan na pag-usapan rin. May economic cost rin siya, no? The justice system, this is very important. How sure are we that all those who are convicted and sentenced to death are really guilty? No? Kamakailan lang, mismo yung mga authors sinasabi nila na kaya daw nila tinutulak ang death penalty because the justice system is dysfunctional.
All the more reason.
Yeah.
All the more reason. And then Kong Umali was saying that people are no longer afraid of committing crimes because they know they can pay. They can pay the police, the judges, no? Pay them, pay for their freedom. So, yun nga, all the more na unahin muna natin yung pagreforma ng ating justice system bago natin pag-usapan yung parusang kamatayan.
Otherwise, only those who cannot afford to pay will end up on death row.
And the president himself, no, says that 40% of the police force are corrupt to the core. And then here comes the Amnesty International report na nagsasabi na yung mga police, they plant evidence. And here comes the incident with the South Korean businessman na pinatay doon sa because tinotokhang siya. So in short, yung unang isang mahalagang bahagi ng justice system, which is law enforcement, it's already dysfunctional, it's flawed. So how can you ensure that yung pinakahuli niya, which is the penalty, death penalty, sigurado kang dumaan yan sa tamang proseso at totoo siya ay guilty kaya siya pinarusahan.
Maybe we can ask maybe from Jake Salazar.
Okay, so we have questions from social media. This one from Jake Salazar. Bakit tinanggal ang plunder sa listahan ng death penalty?
Yun nga ang
those subjected to death penalty.
If I were to question yung list of crimes, ang gusto ko sanang tukuyin muna is kasi mere possession yata 5 grams of drugs or consider death penalty. So marijuana stick, ganyan, pwede kang patayin. But now they remove plunder, which to me is, if you're talking about the national sin, the gravity of a national sin, this is the really grave one because hindi lang isang tao ang apektado, buong taong bayan. And dyan lumalabas yung, to me, perhaps yung self-interest ng mga politicians because these are the crimes committed by people in power.
Magbabago naman daw ang kaya pa daw magbago pag plunder. I read that. One of our congressmen argued.
Well, but mere possession of marijuana stick, diba? I'm sure there are those among us who perhaps in our earlier lives nag-hit ng jutes, so sa akin yung tinanggal mo na yung plunder, talagang lumalabas yung self-preservation. Sige, okay lang na basta hindi kami yung aapektuhan nito.
So, anong status sa bill ngayon? 4727, wala
tanggal na talaga siya.
Tinanggal daw nila although you have to go back
nasa
to
second reading pa naman, diba? So,
kasi ano naman yan magkakaroon yan ng debate. There are those of us who will focus our questions on the crimes. Carnapping, mga ganon, and then we can always talk about plunder. Bakit yung tinanggal ito? What's the difference between plunder and let's say yung possession of 5 grams of marijuana?
Kong, let's just batiin lang natin, maraming nanonood sa atin sa Facebook Live, including from the cities of Riyadh and Al-Ukbar and also of Qatar. Batiin naman natin.
Yeah. Magandang umaga, magandang araw po sa ating lahat.
At Happy Valentine's Day. Because
Valentine's
we're talking
Day.
about death penalty.
Pasensya na lang. Ito yung topic ngayon sa ating bansa sa Pilipinas.
Hindi pula kundi itim ang kulay ng ating pinag-uusapan. What's the game plan of those who are opposed to the death penalty? How do you plan to defeat the bill?
Well, one is to delay muna yung decision making.
Ito yung sinasabi niya, may listahan na kayo na 25 na mag-interpolate.
We want really a full discussion because kahit sabihin naman natin na 2 oras tumayo si Sir Edsel Agbandon, hindi lahat nakikinig at hindi lahat andun. So we hope that if we go to the second reading, botohan na, at least all of us can say na we've listened to the debates. Public pressure is also important. The way to really beat party vote is when the Kong can say, pasensya na lang, sir, boss, yung aking constituents, medyo mas maraming tutol. Whether it's the church, whether it's the human rights people, or the activists, but if a Kong can say that in my district, majority are against the death penalty, then that's one good reason to say that I cannot follow party vote because at the end of the day naman after 3 years ang iniisip ko is ma-re-elect. And that's the reason during the Arch debate that there are certain constituencies that are very strongly Catholic. Mahirap tumiwalag doon sa position ng simbahan. So I think it's important to not just have a discussion in Congress but also sa publiko. Kaya nga sana hindi ipilit yung 1 oras lang because kinakailangan rin pakinggan ng ating publiko yung mga diskusyon. And this definitely will be covered by our media. Covered live siguro pa sa mga ibang stasyon. No?
Si Archbishop Sok kahapon may sinabi rin siya na it would be a shame, sabi niya, kung ma-reimpose yung death penalty while we are preparing for the 500th anniversary of Christianity in the Philippines in 2021. So baka nga magkakaroon pa ng movement on the part of the church, no?
I think they're planning a big rally, a prayer rally this February 21, yeah. 21, no?
Well, may Walk for Life
Yeah.
on
18,
Saturday,
yeah.
Feb 18.
Oh yeah, February 18.
Maaga, 4:30 a.m.
Yes, very early.
Hanggang 7
They're
a.m.
asking us to talk. But I think some of the senators will be there.
Mhm.
We're talking of the House,
Mhm.
but in the Senate, feeling namin mas mahirap ipasa doon.
Mhm.
Mas maraming mga tumututol doon. But if you can beat it in the House, then you don't need to discuss it in the Senate. Kasi usually naman, pag very difficult bills sa House, inuuna eh.
Sir, can I ask you? Sorry, were you about
No.
to ask?
It's okay.
Is this a make or break bill for Speaker Alvarez? Meaning, if he loses this, he will probably lose his position as
face.
Speaker.
Well, it shouldn't be. But I don't know where those rumors come from about, you know, possible coup attempts. Sabi ko nga, it's not gonna come from us kasi numbers game naman yung mga coup na yan eh. But yeah, definitely in terms of you know, imposing your leadership among the members of the House, it will be a big slap on the Speaker if he loses this first administration bill. But sa akin naman kasi, he should also realize that this is democracy. Not everything that you want will pass, especially for very contentious bills. No? Eh, yun nga, tuloy yung sabi ko, it's not only this. Susunod nga, yung lowering of the age. Mas maraming tutol doon. But he's also very adamant, pushing for the administration leaders to back his compromise of 12 years old. Pero ayaw pa rin ng mga mananay. And then you go to federalism, which requires a charter change. Then you go to BBL. In the last Congress, ang hirap talagang itulak yung BBL. So, ang hirap. Ang daming mga bills eh.
Parang sequential ba yan, Kong? I mean, Speaker Alvarez cannot
Go to the next
for instance, push federalism right now while you're working on this?
Pwede naman sana eh. But ako, ang kutob ko kasi, it's like a domino effect eh. Matumba yung isa, despite na very controversial, despite ang kaaway mo is mga babispo, and then you go to the next. Because at least you're confident that you always have that majority behind you, no? Despite, let's say, strong public opposition, you have the bishops, no? So, mas malaki talagang boost sa kanila kung maipasa nila itong death penalty.
The reason I asked that was that we've had guests here before, senators also. They said, this talk about changing the constitution, walang mangyari niyan until after the budget. Parang last year, when we were talking to them, yung pinaka-importante talaga yung budget. There's very, very little leftover capacity for the legislature to attend to any business. So hindi ko alam kung itong death penalty, parang ganun din yung amount of attention of the legislative capacity na nakukuha.
Basta between August to October, it's budget time.
Wala talagang
mahirapan kang mag-discuss ng ano. But you can still insert some days. So kung gusto mo talaga ng extensive discussion on very important bills, you do that before August or after October sa amin sa House, iba sa Senate because they get the budget after us. So I think yun nga ang timeline nila is before we break for our first regular session, maipasa yung death penalty and then lowering of the age before SONA, And then after SONA, andyan na yung BBL. That's what the President said. No? And then kasi pagdating mo na ng September, andyan na yung budget. So gipit talaga sila. And then you're talking of charter change. That's why we're against rin yung charter because CONAS, because if that happens, then wala na kaming pag-uusapan kundi yung saligang batas. Nakalimutan na yung mga ibang mga panukalang FOI, agrarian reform, anti-discrimination, because we will be fully concentrated on the constitutional changes.
Maybe that's the right time to segue to other bills, no?
Yes.
We did promise Kong Ted na we will talk about other things that he's interested in. May tanong si
Dobel. This is a good question. Maari nyo, as a representative from Ifugao, maari nyo po bang palawakin at palakasin ninyo ang pagkakataon ng mga katutubo na makaupo sa Congress? From Dobel Belardo.
Yeah, well, ako talaga isa sa mga nagtutulak na mga panukalang batas for indigenous peoples. No? Meron kaming bill on IP education to recognize yung mga paaralan na itinayo mismo ng mga katutubo na mayroon silang sariling curriculum angkop sa kanilang kultura. So I hope to have it passed. Yung indigenous conservation na kumbaga kilalanin ng ating estado na hindi lang protected areas na ang pamamaraan sa pagtanggol ng kalikasan, but you also have the indigenous way. And that's we hope that finally it will pass. So maliban dun sa protected area system, yung NIPAS, we also have the indigenous indigenous resource conservation. Anti-discrimination bill. No? I'm pushing for this, not just for the IPs, but for the LGBT, or no discrimination on basis of your sexual orientation, gender identity, religion, and your race. No? Katutubo ka man, no? Dapat walang diskriminasyon. So, we have a strong ADB, no? Anti-discrimination, yung equality champs in Congress right now. No? Tulad nga ng sabi ko, pinagalaban natin yung mga iba pang mga rights bills, no? Like expanded maternity leave, which we really hope it will pass, no? To extend paid maternity leave to 100 days. No? I mean, these are all important bills, but syempre, alam naman natin ang focus palagi is the more controversial ones. But these are also important. Freedom of information. Tagal na itong pinagalaban na we will have our committee hearing.
What's happening sa FOI right now?
May committee hearing kami bukas. So, we hope that the chair, si Congressman Tino, would be able to present yung consolidated bill and then i-approve na namin sa committee para may labas na sa plenary. Mining is a very hot issue now because of Secretary Gina Lopez's closure order. So, ang sinasabi natin, para wala na kayong karoon debate tungkol sa ano ba ang tamang pagmimina o hindi, baguhin natin yung batas. Because the miners are saying, but based on the law, you cannot just close our companies. Gina's saying, but you have violated this and that, but hanggang dito lang yung kaya niya, suspension lang, because yung batas says that they can still proceed. No? So, ang gusto namin is baguhin talaga yung batas. So, we have a alternative mining bill, no, na sisimulan na rin namin yung diskusyon. Napakarami pa, no? And we hope that yung at least yung environmental bills na hindi namin naipasa-pasa nung nakaraan, yung National Land Use Act, that's something that
I'm sorry? The
National Land Use Act.
Okay.
Tagal nating
Oo nga, matagal na nga ito.
Naluma na, hindi na naluwa eh.
Anong laman niya at bakit napakatagal bago
there
siya?
should really be honest to goodness land use planning in the local level. Identified mo kung ano yung protected, ano yung production. Pag critical watersheds, dapat talaga bawal ang mining dyan. Pag mga geohazard zones, bawal talaga magtayo ng mga subdivision dyan. Sa atin kasi sa Pilipinas, walang land use eh. Pag sa area ka, makikita mo kahit saan yung mga bahay-bahay, mga condominiums.
And why is it not yet being passed in Congress?
Because ang mga nag-oppose ay yung mga real estate developers. Na ang gusto nila, it should be left solely at the hands of the LGU to decide how do you zone their areas. Doon naman sa bill namin, sinasabi namin, the LGU is still the decision making, but there should be guidelines
already.
No, na pag agricultural area siya, prime agricultural land, kailangan natin ng pagkain, hindi siya pwedeng convert into subdivisions. Ngayon, nakikita natin yung mga dating palayan natin, wala na, no? These are now either SM or golf courses or subdivisions. Kaya lagi tayo nagkakaroon ng rice shortage, or we keep on importing, no? So, yun lang sinasabi namin na there should be honest to goodness land use planning, and then wag yung every administration na pinapalitan. So, there's a term, tenure nung land use mo, 15 years. Ayaw syempre yun ng mga real estate developers kasi nga the real estate industry booming siya, no?
Kung Ted, doon sa mga iba pang mga bills, ano, meron ba doon na, for instance, FOI na mukhang meron namang majority support in Congress na pwedeng gawing bargaining chip ng supermajority? For instance, if Speaker Alvarez will say, Kung Ted, suporta mo yung death penalty, siguradong papasa na yung FOI. Sa tingin mo, may mga ganong, is there any such bill that can...
They might individually, no? Sa mga ibang...
Individually.
But not with me. Ito na yung position ko, eh. Like, for instance, na Makabayan. Si Ton Chitinho ang head ng
FOI.
FOI, and he was already given the go signal from the majority floor. Si Fariñas na, sige, tulak niya yan, priority natin yan. So, I don't know if his position on the death penalty will affect yung FOI. There are instances na ganon because the most powerful group or individual in Congress is not actually the speaker, it's the majority floor. Siya yung nag-traffic kung ano yung i-report siya. So, although, lagi nilang nasabi na we get our cue from the speaker, but still, you know,
the day-to-day business is conducted.
So, for you to have your pet bill be reported to the plenary and to be approved on second reading, kailangan makibargain ka sa majority floor leader. At kung yun ang sasabihin niya, itong kapalit. So, you have to weigh things.
Kung Ted, ang bilis ng oras. You only have 5 minutes left. Tanong natin yung tanong ni Mark Ching. Can we get legislation against paid trolls
Parang kilala ko
and
tong
fake
si Mark
news?
Ching. Parang taga-media yata yan.
Actually, ano yan eh. In-outsource ko nga yung, sabi ko, sino bang pwedeng magbigay ng mga inputs tungkol sa legislation na ganyan.
Fake
Because,
news.
alam nyo, kanina naman sa Congress, we're not really experts, no, on the field. We get inputs really from the resource persons, no, but we are advocates. So let's say law against trolls and fake news. So we need inputs from people na would say that you're not violating the free speech policy. Kasi may nagsabi, I think Teddy Locsin, yung nag-tweet ako, nasabi niya, the danger there is you might actually be legislating against free expression. Those really have something to say. No?
That's right.
And there are those who are saying na baka under our cybercrime laws, baka it could be expanded.
It's already covered.
And pwedeng it's already covered. No? But I do agree that there has to be some policy.
Is this something being discussed by the congressmen? I'm sure they're affected also. Minsan politicians.
The FOI was actually part of it was a discussion on fake news or unfair reporting. No? Na sabi nila na ang dami daw mga unfair reporting ng media, and probably fake news can also come into the discussion. So that's why there are those who are against freedom of information because sa tingin nila it's a media thing na walang responsibilidad yung mga bumabanat sa amin, hindi sila accountable. So
there was a right of reply issue.
That's why there's a right of reply. You know, I don't know with trolls and fake news, but somehow it should be there should be something there na we can look into the current legislation and maybe expand it, tweak it a bit to cover this fake news.
Ang concern ko lang doon, Kong Ted, is baka it becomes a backdoor for government licensing of journalists.
Yun nga.
Yan ang mahirap eh.
It kasi sabi nga nila,
regulation.
it could be even, it could be a backlash para sa mga totoong nagki-criticize. No?
May nangungumusta pala yata kaibigan mo, si Lord de Vera.
Meron po ba tayo dyan?
Ano ibig sabihin?
Hindi ko alam.
Anong meron?
Yung sa... we only have 2 minutes left, but maybe we can end on a more optimistic note. Next week, we will be marking another EDSA anniversary. You were at EDSA 1,
Yeah,
Ted, no? So, can you tell us a little bit what you did? Where were you? In 1986?
Doon sa loob ng krame.
Sa Krame mismo?
Kami kasi yung mga nagproprotesta laban sa Marcos dictatorship, and then I joined I campaigned for President Aquino. So when Adaya, I was so disgruntled, no? Sa totoo lang, may mga nag-recruit sa amin na mag-MPA. So we didn't know what's going to happen, no? Kasi magulo na ganyan, your disillusion. And then nangyari to. Sabi ko, I have to be there. So yung unang gabi, wala pang taong masyado. I think it was a time that Butch Aquino,
Atom pa lang.
Kaya ganoon. So ilan lang sila, around 200 of them yata sa labas. And then, I don't know what came over me. I just climbed the walls, dropped down. I had my fake press card here. Ninakaw ko yung kaibigang Philippine Collegian, ganyan. And then I went to the DND building. Buti hindi ako binaril nila kung nasan. Sabi ko kay Senator, buti hindi niyo ako binaril. And then I stayed there. There was a press con of Enrilen and and I stayed there kasi ayaw mo na umalis because history was happening. And then, lo and behold, the following day, ang dami ng tao. And then from Krame, we transferred to Camp Aguinaldo. Yung lumipat sila. Nag-join forces si Fidel Ramos. And again, I was there kasi yung CNN reporter, kinuha niya ako na parang interpreter. So, walang ligo. but we had food because we had Jollibee every now and then. And then my uncle, as General Felix Browner, was ordered to attack.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was called because they didn't cut the lines. No? Gulat nga ako, they didn't cut the lines. There was electricity. I called my mom. Mom, sabihin mo kay uncle dito yung pamangkin niya. Huwag niyang lusubin ng EDSA. I mean, ang Camp Aguinaldo. And then yun nga, after 5 days.
Yeah, he said no.
Yeah, and he left actually. He left Malacanang. So, yun. That's really history in the making, and I was right there at the middle of it.
Sana we had more time, ano? Ang ganda pakinggan ng mga story ni Kong Teddy Baguilat. But it's 9 o'clock. We have to say goodbye. Time, magpaalam na tayo.
So thank you to everyone who watched us tonight. Who's next in the hot seat? Follow us on social media. On Twitter, @JNary_newsstand and Sabilio INQ.
Once again, thank you to our special guest, EDSA veteran, and Ifugao representative Teddy Baguilat. Thank you for making time for this. Good luck with the fight against the death penalty bill. This has been INQ&A. Thank you and good night.